All right, let's introduce our speaker. So, how many of you guys have heard of, raise your hand if you've heard that fishing might be okay on Red Lake, Upper Red Lake? How many of you guys went to Upper Red Lake in the last 2 years? Quite a few, yeah. Our guest is a guide on Upper Red. He's probably the most popular winter guide on Upper Red, and he's quickly becoming one of the more popular guides in all of Minnesota. He's probably going to blush at this, but you know, you throw the names, the Roaches and the Newstroms, you know, you throw those names around, and Brad's name gets thrown in there too, because that's what he does. He's a professional guide, and he's one of the best that Minnesota has to offer, whether it's on Red Lake, whether it's on Mille Lacs, or wherever he goes. That's what he is. He's a professional guide. He's about teaching people how to fish, and that's what he wants to do to you guys tonight. So let's give him a round of applause. Brad Hawthorne.
Hey guys, the drive up here was kind of nice. I usually like a driving partner when I come up. Hang on, can you guys hear me okay without that? Without the mic? Okay, cool. So I kind of coaxed the girlfriend. I said, okay, I'm going to stop. If you drive with me, because I plan on driving home tonight, I will stop at all the, she loves crafting. Anything crafting, I've got her attention. So we leave at about 9:30 this morning. About 1, I'm looking at, I'm going, honey, we got to get going here. I mean, half the bed of the truck's full with beads, different types of stuff, and I'm sitting here in the truck kind of brushing up on the seminar going, you know what, I'm going to add you into this now. So point being is I got someone to keep me awake on the ride home, and when I start to doze off, she can hop right in the driver's seat. But thanks for having me up here, guys. I really appreciate it. And that is the warmest welcome introduction I've ever got, Scott. Thank you very much. And what I do, when I got into this industry, there's different paths you can take. One is going the sponsorship route, and the harder route is going at it the way people did it in the 50s, 60s, 70s, was to go at it from the guide angle and to try to make your money actually catching fish and teaching people how to catch fish. And that's been something that's been kind of lost the last 10, 15 years. A, the money's not in it the way it used to be, and B, it's a tougher game out there now. So the point to that is I take very, very few sponsor dollars. You'd be surprised to know that 90% of my income is from guiding. And I think when you combine those two things together, you get an honest opinion. Like tonight, I'm not going to push product on you. I wouldn't like anyone to do that to me. I'm lucky enough to be able to mention products and not take $1 from them. I go to Shields and buy them. I go to Gander Mountain and buy them just like you guys do. And I think when you can do that, you can communicate a lot better, and you can be a heck of a lot more truthful about products. And a lot of the stuff you'll see tonight, guys, is stuff that I put to work every day guiding, from ropes to little magnets, things like that. So spring rigging is really not about rigging chubs or leeches in the springtime. It's about how I rig my boat and what's in it to make me more efficient on the water every day. I mean, you can imagine if I have 4 people in my boat, 3 of them have never fished before, and I have to be on my game, and these people have to catch fish, or at least I have to prove to them that I did everything on that given day so that they had the best chance of catching fish. You know, I have bad days on the water. You know, I have great days on the water. But if you have a bad day on the water, proving to your customers that you tried absolutely everything in your power and that they're in the best hands capable will bring them back. So without spending too much time on that, I'm going to pop in here and kind of just run through a few of the things. One of my biggest tools, and I know a few are going to laugh at it, is right here. this little station in my boat is kind of like, that is my desk. You see here, it's a milk crate. I've got it sitting right here. And this guy here, I keep it rigged with whatever lures are working me. Sometimes my jig box is in there. Sometimes my cranks are in there. In a tournament, I have all my hot lures right here. Everything sits right in front of me. And the tournament angler can use that. The guy that's just out fishing for the day, instead of digging in compartments for your sinkers are over here, everything you're trying to do is with a 10-foot radius of you, bringing that back in to your work zone, especially if you're a tiller guy. Being able to be right in this area, I guarantee you, if you don't be that guy in a tournament or even out fishing, you're with your kids, you're running up and down that boat, you probably put on a half mile. Me, I'm wearing out bearings in my seat because all I have to do is swivel around and grab what I need to grab. So if you have these, they're really handy. Man, are they handy. And to kind of trick them out, to get stuff closer to you, I just put a little, actually I'm not sure who makes that one, it's a little magnetic tool holder. I just bolted right on the side. The beautiful part about these is I use them in the winter too. You see I have my tools there. These are actually leftover deals from tournaments. That's just from some lakes you can call on. So you can see, you can just hang stuff up. They're a real functional, cheap, sometimes free tool that you can use. Now, you can see there, I can hang my coffee cup on. But the next one is a Sharpie. I know it's one of those things where, guys, I got a Sharpie? Come on. But being able to label your stuff, I mean, not that I'm a freak about being organized, but opening up the wings or the front flap of your boat, your front cupboards, and go bang and grabbing it. Now you're, instead of that guy you guys have seen this, the guy out there, you're fishing a tournament, he's throwing stuff everywhere. Next thing you know, he's got stuff all over his boat, and he's tripping over it, and he just messed up his boat. It's like, simply write it on there. Labels, I used to use labels. They work, but they fade. Some guys will go, well, I don't like writing with a Sharpie on my boxes. Little water in your fish rag, scrub it, comes right off. And you can relabel it and do whatever you want to do. So that's another one. Now you can see here where I always, when I do a seminar, I try to not prove it, but anyone can stand in front of a group of people and say, yeah, do this. This is how it's supposed to work. Right here, I've got a lot going on. There's actually 3 people in the boat on this trip. I got a planer board out, got this guy holding the fish, and I'm actually unhooking another one behind this guy right here. But you can see how, there again, on this particular day, every fish you had to change a lure. It was, the fish are on the edge of a flat, and there's 3 schools out there, and you're kind of bouncing around, half mooning them. Every time you came through a school, they wanted something different. It was bouncing from fire tiger to silver, and it was almost a sickening day in the water. But it was one of those days where if you weren't organized in your boat, if you got lazy and said, oh, I'm just going to throw out 3-4 lines with fire tiger on and grind them fish out, you definitely would have caught less fish. So you had to change it up. So there again, labeling your boxes, keeping them close, keeping them in the $2 or free milk crate. It keeps the trip flowing, and when guys are paying you $300-400 a day, they don't want to see you fiddling around in your boat. And the same thing goes for tournament angler. The more efficient you are in your boat, and some people say, well, that may be a little anal. The less time, if you spend right now at the course of an 8-hour tournament, if you're spending 15 minutes looking for stuff, rigging stuff, oh man, I'm out of that. That's the time where your line should be in the water. And everyone knows, last year I fished MTT Lake of the Woods. My old tournament partner, we were actually fishing against each other last year. He won that tournament the last 15 minutes of the tournament. He caught a 12-pound walleye. Me and him fished the same. We're labeled. We know where everything is in the boat. He was able to stay 29 miles away from the weigh-in station because he bought himself that extra time. And he even admitted to that after. He goes, milk crates, stuff not flying all over the boat, knowing where everything was, gave him that fish. He was looking at his watch. They were counting down the seconds to when they had to leave, and that's how he won that tournament. So sometimes it's not all about skill, it's about, hey, that bite window, by being more efficient, those bite windows that you look for, that you key in on during the tournament, they're bigger. They become 3 to 4 minutes bigger, and everyone knows the more fish you catch in a tournament, the better you're going to be, and most likely, the more time you're fishing is the better, or the more time you have on a spot allows you to catch those bigger fish sometimes. Here again, and sorry for these pictures, like I tend to snap pictures when things come into my head when I'm working. So right here, this is actually a box of reef runners. And you can see what I've got going on there is simply, I write them down. And everyone knows reef runners, they're great bait, but they all run different. You could buy 5, and if we're being 100% honest, you could buy 5 reef runners, 3 of them will work. The other 2, well, they're just hard to tune, but once you get them going, they're a great bait. And they'll also run a foot or 2 deeper. The same series lure will actually run different. So you can see here, my first tray runs about 17, then 18, and that's how I keep track of it. I notarize those on the boxes as I go through the day or through the box. So when I'm in that situation, I can flip it up and go, here it is, the fish aren't color dependent. It's about putting a lure in front of them right now, and this is the vibration and the action they want, and it's all labeled right there. Now here's another one. I have nothing to do with Beckman net at all. In my opinion, they make a great net. I love using their net. I've never broke one. This net is actually about 8 years old. The only frustration I have with these nets is when you go to extend them, sometimes you end up with 2 handles here, and you're going, oh man, what do you do? Like, bummer. Simply, there's that Sharpie again. If you look right there, all I've done is draw 2 arrows on that net. So again, if you're netting a fish for a customer, you'll line those 2 black arrows up and you hear the tink. Now you can go bag your fish. Now I don't know how many times, I mean, I felt stupid. I felt stupid when my old tournament partner Bob goes, Brett, grab that Sharpie that you love so much. He goes, make 2 marks on that thing. Next thing you know, there's never holding your net like this ever again. So if you use Beckman nets, just put a couple arrows there, and instead of trying to feel for it, look at it, line them up, and bam, you'll have a positive net connection all the time. Again, here is another little trick. You may think I'm going to talk about Sharpies, and no. Right here, that planer board's about 8, 9 years old, and you can see I painted it black, and there is definitely a reason for that. What I found, even on Red Lake and Mille Lacs, fishing shallow is kind of an art. It's knowing when the fish are there, because you can't mark them. A lot of times you find these spots by pitching jigs or trolling through. You guys all in this room all have that area where you can drag a number 5 on a certain lake in 6, 7 feet of water, and you know you always get one. Well, there's usually more than one there. But this black paint, what I found with different boards that were orange and yellow, when I started running them out, the fish would get spooky. Like if I ran a board by them, it would be a 50-50 shot whether or not I get bit. If I came in there and chucked a bait at them and popped it in, I'd get them. And I was like, what is the deal? I mean, as far as planer boards go, they give the bait such a great action, especially in shallow water. They give it kind of like a true running number 5 that all it does is just do that. A planer board will make that bait a little erratic. So I took the color out of them, and it made all the difference in the world. So there's another tip for you guys that are out there. It doesn't matter in deep water, but in shallow water, if you're having to use boards, cover them up with some paint. There's no, I mean, you don't even see this. All you see is the front corner of that board. So just keep that open. This one, the paint's falling off, but that little tip right there will definitely catch you more fish. And this day here is actually a day up on Upper Red Lake. This guy was talking about Upper Red Lake. The Red Lake has gotten a lot of press the last couple of years, and there's for good reason. When Red Lake was fished out, by many different reasons, the lake, just the walleye population crashed. Since then, the DNR stocked and went through a huge restocking effort for Upper Red Lake. Now, Red Lake has the fish that are in Red are not the fish that were there 20 years ago. This is a different genetic strain of Red Lake walleyes. And the good news is, the strain that's in there is the Leech Rainey strain, and they love shallow water. They're genetically predisposed to shallow water. And you'll see that from a lot of stock lakes. All of a sudden, a lake that was never stocked, and they stock it, all of a sudden 3 or 4 years from there, all of a sudden you have weed walleyes. And that's the exact same reason for this. So when you fish up a Red Lake, this picture is actually, these are Red Lake walleyes right here. And this is why I have jointed 5s and regular 5s right there. So if you go to Red, if you guys know it's a little bit of a drive, but even though they've dropped the limit to 2 for the summer, if you want to grab the family and go up there and it's a calm day, one of the fastest ways to catch walleyes in Upper Red Lake, it doesn't matter if it's opener or all summer long. And I know this seems fast, but trust me, it works. Throw on some number 5s or some jointed. Chuck 75 feet of line out behind your boat, 10 foot or 10-pound mono, or whatever your favorite line is, excuse me, and crank your boat up to 2.8 to 3.2 miles an hour and stay in 6 to 8 feet. Weave around until you find it. You can do this same technique with a 16-foot boat and a 10-horse motor. If you can get out, you can go catch fish out there. That's how these fish are relating on Upper Red Lake. They're staying. If the water stays cool enough, these fish are relating to the shorelines. Last year, they never pulled off. Last year, they took 100,000 pounds of walleye out of Red in the summertime. And that was due to the bait stayed shallow, and so did the fish. If you guys are looking for a place to go or you got a free weekend, grab your favorite baits, go up there, 75 feet of line, 6 to 11 feet of water, make sure you're by some type of rock, and bring the kids with you and have a great time, guys. Again, sorry about the Sharpie stuff, but labeling these boxes, bam, I can grab them, I know right where they're at, and don't forget about this little thing right here. That, especially on shallow lakes where you're trolling, the only way I can prove it is by saying, hey, it worked for me, but there's no reason, if you think about it, if you were casting, you would not have cast a big orange thing or yellow thing right by your lure. You'd try to cover it up a little bit. Same with bobbers. That's why a lot of bobbers are black on the bottom. You don't need, if you're fishing in 3 feet of water, you don't need a orange beacon right above you. Same thing with the planer board. Try to cover that color up a little bit. Here's another little one. This guy right here is, I know it just looks like a rope. My girlfriend was like, you're gonna show those guys a rope? I'm like, yes, I am. So, I lose a lot of things, I go through a lot of gear, I burn through a lot of gear in the course of a season. This is just your normal 12-strand rope. You can get it at the hardware store. But the key to this is this hook right here. This hook, when you go to hook it onto your drift sock or the rope, is positive. There's no way, you guys have seen the hooks with the little spring deal on there. How many, I used to lose at least a bag a season, a drift bag a season, just from those little snaps, because that strap is so thin, you turn the boat or you kick it into gear to try to pull yourself back on the fish. Next thing you know, you're like, what is that? That's my bag. Why isn't it on my boat? And the shocking part is every bag manufacturer has a harness for sale for about $20 to $40. And it's got a buoy on it. The buoys are great. But I've lost enough for them to know that if you lose your bag and that buoy's on there, it's going with your bag down to the bottom. It's not staying with it. It's going to chase it. So this little solution right here, this is 6 feet of rope, okay? That gives you your loop on the end. This little clip here is about $3. I have 5 or 6 of these in my boat. That connects to your drift bag. It won't ever come off. It's also a lot stronger. I've done it. I know a few people in this room have probably done it. You take off with your bag still out, or one of them. You're like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Oh, there it is. Yep. Get that bag back in. These won't snap. And they're cheap. They're very cheap. And me say, well, where's the buoy on it? Like I said before, if you lose your bag, the last thing you're going to see is the buoy going down with it. That buoy is basically for the guy who can find it like 2 weeks later. That's the guys, that's who you're putting that harness on for. So again, these, get them in stainless steel. They pop on and off very, very easy. And that's like, not that I wouldn't call myself cheap, but imagine I've got 7 or 8 bags in my boat. I'm not going to spend $300 on harnesses for these bags. I'm just not going to do it. Beautiful part too about these is their dock lines. Once you disconnect from your bag, and you guys have all seen drift bags after using them, they get twisted up and they actually start shrinking the diameter of your bag. So let's say you're on a drift and you're using a 50-inch bag. After 3 or 4 hours, 9 times out of 10, that bag's not a 50. You're like, hey, why am I gaining 2/10? What's going on here? We're warp speeding this drift. It's because your bag is now a 40-inch bag. And that swivel on that hook right here, that'll keep that from happening. So, you know, a lot of these, they sell the harnesses, there's no swivel on it. It's just direct and that thing just sits and goes like that. So anyways, just a teeny little tip. I know it's kind of redundant, but just that little tip right there will keep your bags operating at 50 inches or 30 inches, which you guys have all seen that. I mean, especially in Lake of the Woods. If you can't keep a consistent speed, almost speed is more important at times than the color of lure that you're using, like 2, 2, 2, 4. If you can't stay right in that realm, you're not catching fish. And your bags aren't going to shrink on you going that fast either. So that was one. The other one, and this kind of comes from ice fishing, is these bait pucks. Everything in my boat is bulk. And a lot of you guys that do tournaments and stuff, everything's in a little bag. Okay, a little bag that you set down. You know, you could have a bag this big, and there's $4 worth of hooks in it that a 3-mile-an-hour wind will pick up, and it's flying. These right here float, and I can fit. The only bummer about these is when I take my rigging hooks and put them in there, you can have about $40 worth of hooks in one of these, and if you lose it, it's a huge bummer. But again, with the organization, and this one here, this is actually the same one in the picture. This has got all my snaps, and the other thing I have in there is my number 10 Spro swivels that I use for my jig rods, and that's also my union on my lead core, from my mono, from my tip line to my lead core. So I have about 6 of these in the boat. One's got snaps in it, one's got beads in it, one has number 6 hooks in it, and one has number 8 hooks in it. And they all have different tops. This one's kind of wore off, but they're also labeled. That way, if you're in a rigging situation, instead of opening up a little bag, fishing in there for a little hook, putting it in your mouth, you pop this open, grab the hook, put it in your mouth, you're tying, you shut this, and you throw it back in there, and you're back fishing. It's, again, it just keeps you more efficient as far as an angler in the boat. Now here's another one. This has nothing to do with fishing. This came about being frustrated, okay? Electric fillet knives, I love cleaning fish with an electric. When I'm cleaning fish, the faster I get done, the faster I get home. The one thing that'll slow me down and frustrate me the most is dull blades. Okay, they don't make a good cover for these knives. What this is, that's just a cover off an old Rapala fillet knife. Put that on there, they fit perfect on the large size walleye blades for these. They fit snug, they're not gonna fall off. And what a lot of people don't realize, it's not these blades that get dull from going through bone, as long as you're not cutting up 6-pound fish. It's getting them nicked up. You know, one little nick, next thing you know, you got 2 little nicks, then they quit working. So this little, you know, just a lot of times you can pick up an old Rapala fillet knife that's been sharpened for the last 20 years and it's lost its prime. You pick those up for $3 at a garage sale, take the knife, stick that in the wall in your shop. That can be used for cutting. It's no good for cleaning fish anymore. Take the sheath off it, pop it on your electric knife. Now, I used to go through 6 to 7 sets of blades a year. And I'm going, man, my overhead's getting out of control. I got $300 in blades now. Start using the sheath, 2. down to 2 sets of blades a year, guy, and I clean Upper Red Lake. Man, last year I cleaned 800 fish by middle of January. So that'll tell you, it's not the blades going through bones, it's just not taking care of them, having them get beat up. Okay, again, swivels. It's another one of them little things that is extremely overlooked. Swivels, I use them on everything. You guys are kind of go, what? Yeah, I do. And using swivels in the wintertime are on all my jigging spoons, or all my jig rods, about that far out. Keeps the spoon from spinning up the line. That's the union between my tip line and my lead core. And you may say, well, why? Well, it keeps it from spinning. Okay, if you hook a small perch and you have a 10-foot rod out, you're not going to see that little fish on that rod, and you are going to coil up your tip line. And when that coils up, if you're not using a swivel, it becomes a ball. And then it'll loop over and grab your first color of line out. And then you have a mess. Once that gets into that lead core, unless you want to spend a half hour looping it through, rubbing it straight, massaging those knots out of lead core, put a swivel on. What'll happen with the swivel, if that happens, your tip line will ball up to the swivel, and it'll sit and do this, and that rod will just, you'll think it's a fish, or you'll reel up and you go, thank God that I had that swivel on there, because if I didn't, you'd be cutting the color off, and now you got, 2 rods and reels, and one you're letting out one more color, and they're off. So swivels, they're a magical thing. I put them on everything. Now for fall trolling, same deal. These are 6 to 8 feet ahead on all of my rods, and there's another point to be made as far as rods go. Now, a lot of people would think you have to have a certain rod for everything. There's a lot of rods that'll cross over in this industry. The manufacturers don't want to tell you, hey, your rods you pull blades with, those are the best fall trolling rods you're going to find. And they don't need to be a $300 rod. Actually, my blade rods are actually just Gary Roach series rods. They're $50 rods. I've had them for years. Great rods. Now, the rods you hold in your hand, those are expensive ones. So enough with the swivels. I kind of bounce around with these seminar guys. I try to touch on a lot of different things. Now this right here is, I started adding this stuff in because after seminars is where I kind of get the content for the next seminar. And a lot of people ask me, how do you mark fish? How do you set your sonar up? And I got to thinking, I'm like, man, it seemed like a simple question to me, but it's really not. It just happened. Like if you're a truck driver, you jump in your rig and you drive that truck. And you do it professionally, and you don't think about why you're such a good driver. And the same thing goes for operating sonar. That's my eyes underneath the water. I mean, that's telling me whether to stop, go, move. That's what that's telling me. So sensitivity with your sonar. And I don't care if you're using Humminbird or Lowrance. I don't care who you love more, who you hate, what you do, what you don't do. But the one thing that goes hand in hand with sonar use is your sensitivity. Okay? And that is, once I explain this, you guys are all going to go, yeah, check this out. See all this stuff up here? You guys go, my screens. I don't care what is up here. I don't. And you guys go, well, I got a 12-inch graph or an 8-inch graph or whatever, and this looks messy to them. That looks beautiful to me. Right here, you see how clear I'm marking these fish here? I mean, that is about as clear as it gets. The most common problem with not being able to mark fish is sensitivity. I've been blessed to be able to do seminars and then look at people's boats after it. Guys will have their boats in the parking lot, and I'll go over and I'll go, man, you got a nice unit, and your transducer's right. I turn it on, and they have their sensitivity on auto. Lock this in there. Auto sensitivity means automatically you're going to mark less fish. It doesn't mean, hey, great, it says auto, I don't have to worry about it. Especially if you're, you know, if you're fishing a tournament or you're trying to do good with your family in the boat, auto means you're going to automatically catch less fish. I wish I actually said that in there, but they would never do it. So, rule of thumb for setting up your sonar, make the top look about 2 shades lighter than your bottom, whatever color line you're in. And that'll always keep you marking fish. Or fuzz half your screen out. That means, yeah, there's a commitment you have to make with finding fish. And that is keeping your sensitivity up and always. On a Lowrance, you can keep it up and just adjust it. On Humminbird, you can too. You just keep your menu up and you can adjust it. As you get deeper, crank her up a little bit. As you come in shallow, crank her up a little bit. And guys go, wow. If I'm fishing a 20-foot reef top, like I was here, and then you're going out to 30 feet of water, you find the happy medium there. I mean, I'm not saying adjust it when you're fishing here and adjust it when you're dragging your baits up. Find the happy medium and live with it. You know, if this fuzzes out by the time I get to the top, I don't care. I'm turning right around and going back out where the fish are because I know where they are at. So just keep that in mind. Fuzz out your sonar, and I think it's safe to say everyone in this room's a walleye guy. You know, if you're a bass guy, you're not going to operate your sonar like that. If you're a bass guy, you're very rarely going to be in 30 feet of water. And unfortunately, a lot of the publications you read and a lot of the stuff that's out there media-wise is based on bass fishing. Okay, I very rarely use, you know, like side imaging, down imaging in a tournament. Bass guys love it. They win tournaments on it. I don't use it. I'll use it pre-fishing. I use it to find something cool, but I'm not using it right now. I may use down imaging or something, you know, alongside this, but I'm usually in my 2D sonar with my sonar cranked up. So just kind of remember that. You want this to look kind of like that, a few holes in it. You know, maybe if this turns yellow, you're going to know that there's bait up there. But right now, that's marking fish. That's actually marking a lot of fish. Here's another one. Okay. You can see I came up here and came down here. Now this, you can kind of see the color change in here as I went deeper and shallower in there. But again, I took this picture because the guy that was in my boat, I'm going, here they are, wait for it. But we were rigging here. I'm like, wait for it, wait for it. I have 2 transducers in my boat. One kicked up about 20 degrees and one laying flat. That way when I'm coming up and down these flats, it doesn't have to be a mud flat, it could be a rock flat, it could be anything. Any transition change, if you point your transducer up a little bit, you're going to be able to see this angle. You know, and that's so, point being, that line coming up there, that's a fish coming out of there because we're pulling them out. And I'm showing this guy this on the screen. I'm like, see that? There's your fish. And he's like, nuh-uh. I'm going, yeah, yeah, that is. That's why your pole's bending, man. But again, you look at right here. This almost if you reverse these two, they're almost the same. The only difference is there's fish here. So again, get comfortable with your sensitivity on your unit. Make it look not so good. I mean, the most beautiful part of this screen right here is these fish. And if your sensitivity isn't up there, if you're just seeing bottom with a little color on there, because you got a new color sonar or whatever it is, you're not going to see fish. What you're going to see right here, if your sensitivity is not cranked up, you're going to see something like this color about 1/3 of the size. You're going to see something like that right there. And you're going to drive right over it instead of stop and fish there. So now again, I always kind of throw in a cool little deal. This is actually a prototype sonar that may or may not be coming out next year. I can't talk about it too much, but it just happened to be in there and let it slip. Again, with sensitivity, right there, that's my swivel. And that's a fish on the 2D coming up to it. Again, it doesn't matter, summer or winter. Use your sensitivity the same. In the winter, err on the side of caution. Take a look at your lure and then adjust it from there. In the wintertime, or in the summertime, fuzz your screen out. Make it look like the bottom. In the wintertime, mark your lure, back her off of here, just so you can see it. And just don't be afraid of the sensitivity. And that's about it. Now on to bait. Bait in the lake is one of those things that gets overlooked at times. And color selection with bait. When you walk through the stores, and let's say you're going to fish Lake of the Woods or Red Lake, they're full of emerald shiners. There's emerald shiner right here. Walk into the lake, hey, there's an emerald shiner color right there, and I'm like, it's purple, not emerald shiner. You know, if you look at the hues in these baits, that's kind of what you want. And people go, hey, look at that green. That green's awesome. I want to use a green bait. That bait usually swims above the walleye, so they're not seeing green. This is what they're seeing. This iridescent color, that's 9 times out of 10 what those walleyes are keying in. And not that color doesn't matter, but a lot of times it's more that iridescent white color. And here, I'm going to show you another example of that. Same thing. Another emerald shiner. This is what the fish is seeing, guys, right in here. These colors right there. That's kind of what you want to be keying in on if you're looking to match the natural forage. I see a lot of baits where guys will say, well, there's emerald shiners in this lake, or there's spot tail shiners. And guys are using off-the-wall colors because the back of the bait, it's green. You don't want to use green. So anyways, another one. This is spot tail. Right here. I am using basically silver baits, a little blue in them, a little blue hue, but you see how similar these two are? I mean, they're almost identical. So again, iridescent colors, that means a lot. You can't see that in the package sometimes. Sometimes you gotta grab that, hold it up to the light, and turn it. And every lake, the reason why I bring this up is a lot of the big lakes in the state have either emerald shiners or spot tails. Spot tails being the most common. And now for bait, what no one ever talks about with bait is when they move. Everyone thinks, well, these guys here, they spawn when everything else spawns. No, they don't. They do not at all. These spot tail shiners, just about any lake in Minnesota, North South Dakota, these guys are spawning mid to early July on sand and little pea gravel if they can find it. That's where these guys are going to be. And if the lake has spot tails in it, the walleyes are going to be on top of them. They know that. They're going to go there just like a frog run in the fall. Those walleyes are going to be there beating up these things. So sometime when you're pre-fishing a lake, or if you're in a tournament, or if you're out fishing with your family, look for some bait. Look for some spot tail shiners, and you'll catch walleyes not far behind them. If you don't find walleyes behind them, you're going to find some type of predator looking for these fish right around them. Here's another one. This picture I took at Winnie. Winnie's full of spot tail shiners. Full. Like to the point where it's just brimming with them. I mean, they're everywhere. But they like to hang out a little deeper. On Winnie, this is what, I actually picked these out of my live well after a tournament. I was so shocked. I spent day one of that tournament so locked into fishing silver iridescent baits because that was the bait fish in the lake. I knew there was perch. I knew they were there. It didn't even click in my brain. We caught all our fish in 6 to 8 feet of water. Got in that night, weighed an okay bag. You know, we were kind of in it, kind of not in it. Cleaned up the live well. These are half digested perch. There wasn't a walleye, I can't guarantee it, but there wasn't a walleye caught in that tournament that was eating shiners. So again, sometimes it takes just, if I think back to that tournament, I'm like, man, that was kind of stupid. The perch were right there, the walleyes were right there. I knew the shiners were out deep because I marked them out deep, but there was no fish out deep. The walleyes had taken up their summer positions in the weeds because their easy primary food source was now perch. The next day I switched to perch lures, and we ended up taking, it wasn't from coming down to the dumps, actually finishing about 16th in that tournament just from a color change. And more important, climbing that many steps by being wrong the first day. And you know, then again, sometimes the biggest learning factors I have in my job is when you're so wrong. Like you feel so bad. Like you go out and you spend $500 on a tournament entry or $400 on a tournament entry, and you come in and you are at the bottom of the pack. Okay? It's not a good feeling, but if you take that and you go, what did I do wrong? Obviously, you weren't dialed in. Look in your live well. Start looking for those. I get frustrated. I'm like, man, I'm missing something. I know I'm missing something. Crack open the live well, crack open and go, they're eating perch. They're eating perch and they're all the same size. They're all about this big. Like I said, one lure change, all of a sudden we're up 40 places. It's real easy, guys. So if you're in that situation, dead last, bottom 10, whatever, take a look at what you're doing. Sometimes do the exact opposite. Sometimes that one lure isn't working, it's in your head that it should. Throw on pink. Throw on something out of the world. That way you can at least say you tried it. Now as far as rods go, rods are, like I kind of touched on it a little earlier, rods are something you can sink a lot of money into. You know, a lot of guys I fish with that have $10,000 in rods. I don't. This one here, this is actually a 12-foot Jason Mitchell rod. He makes some good rods. I really like some of his rods. This is a 10-footer. And again, when I'm running 4 people, I'll run 10 12-footers on the outside, shorties on the inside. These rods are not that expensive. Matter of fact, I think 2 years ago you could buy one, get one. But again, to the multi-purpose of these rods. I mean, I never like buying a rod and having it just for one thing. You know, the only rods that are in my boat that are like that are my rigging rods. You know, my minnow and leech rods that you're not really going to use a rod with that action unless you're casting a light jig or you're rigging and pulling something that needs to be that sensitive, that expensive of a rod. So again, with the rods, your rods with a bait caster on them usually don't have to be a $200 or $300 rod. Save some money, buy the cheaper stuff, the more affordable stuff, which is still good quality, and sink that extra dollars that you saved on that into a nice $200 rod that even, this guy here, named Larry, okay? I'll tell you, this guy owned a construction company for years, burnt his hands. Oh, 0 to no feeling. This rod here, St. Croix 8-foot rigging rod, okay? He can feel fish on this rod in 30 feet of water. Again, just saved a little money and was able to rig my boat. If you're holding a rod in your hand all day, you want that to be whatever brand you like, whatever you're confident in. Buy those rods that you hold in your hand every day. If kind of a rule of thumb I use, if a rod goes in a rod holder, it shouldn't be over 50 bucks. If it goes in a rod holder and it stays there, as long as it's got the good action on it, it shouldn't be more than 50 bucks. A rod that you're holding in your hand all day, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit because that could make or break your day on the water. So that is about all I have, guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and fire them off. The one thing I will tell you is I used to guide in the summer on Mille Lacs exclusively. Okay, the last 2 years with Mille Lacs being down, I kind of shift halfway between Red Lake and Mille Lacs. The one thing about doing that is you learn the good and the bad about the fisheries. The good about Red Lake right now, you can go up there, catch a lot of little fish. There's no big fish. Mille Lacs right now, you can catch some big fish, but there's no eaters. So if you guys are looking for a trip, you want to for sure catch fish with your friends or family, head up there like before. And for the first 2 weeks of the season, it's going to be a jig bite or pulling a wrap. So kind of keep that in mind, even on a Saturday. Go ahead and buzz up there, grab your fish, and have some fun. But thanks for having me out, guys. I appreciate it.